Every woman in the communications and in business leadership in general has a story to tell. One of the quotes I liked most and I relate to most is the quote from Carly Fiorina talking about that the leadership and success can never be taken for granted. Getting to leadership, there is always, investment to be made, and I think from my experience there was good return on the investment. So when I sit and look back and reflect a bit on the investments that I've made in my life to get to where I am today, I guess the biggest investment is the time I spent away from my family at different times, getting to different parts of the world and meeting different people and talking to different people, learning about different cultures and doing business in the different cultures. So it's definitely in business, travel and meeting people is very different. I graduated out of the American University in Cairo, and I come from a family that believes very much in investment in education. I joined a startup company, and that startup company had big ambitions to go beyond working in Egypt and being in the Middle East and later on to work in the US. And at that time I was married, and I was lucky to be supported by a very supportive husband, I would say, who was very much into, go ahead, pursue your career, even if that means that you will have to travel more, you have to go and see customers, you have to meet people in different, do business in different countries. And I think that was really a triggering point. I went to a country in the Middle East just 5 minutes before I get into the meeting, and they tell me, oops, sorry, you cannot get into that meeting just because you're a woman. I don't take these things personal. I think it's more of a lack of maturity on the other side rather than having to do with me. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of being a woman in that industry. So let it be. If the time will come when they become more mature and look at things differently. And I think that has changed dramatically. And the amount of work that we now have to do, realizing that, and I think, that's a time where, we need to realize the challenges of that industry in itself for women and be able to help and support. How can we do that? We talk about leaders, we talk about women leaders. The countries are very proud to talk about, the targets that they're setting for women leaders. I think the UK was setting a target of 30% of board members to be women by 2020. I think now it's sitting at 25%. This is all great. That's not where it starts, and that's not where we need to focus the effort, because you can't bring somebody just to become a leader, right? And the most dangerous, in my perspective, the most dangerous part is when this becomes a quota that has to be achieved. I've seen situations where women being put in a position just because they need to make sure that they achieve the quota. And if you speak to the colleagues around her, they feel that, unfortunately, she's just there, just to complete numbers. But the reality is, it's not by merit.
Although I enjoyed the coding, I also enjoyed solving the business problem. For me, it wasn't about coding for technology's sake. It was about, look what I can do, look what we can achieve, look how we can help this company. And so I gradually moved into project management, leading teams. I also started to work a little bit in the sales front, sales technology.
I figured out that this computer class I was taking a C programming class. And I just loved it, and I was pretty good at it. So I learned how to program. I became a software engineer, and then out of school I went into actually the government.
That's how I got into tech, and I loved it, and I thought it was really cool. I then went and spent some time in the public sector, building and developing, and then going to a national program to get kids from low-income families online at home that Microsoft and Intel were involved in, which I got to work on.
So I was queuing for my application with my philosophy thing. That was the only option. I had really good grades out of school, so I went there. And I went back to the end of the queue to get another application. I kind of stripped, I said, mathematics. And I went there, and then I called my mum and said, I did it. And she said, okay, so you would do philosophy? No, I'm gonna do maths. And she was like, but you've been saying you're gonna do philosophy for 10 years. And I was like, yeah, but I was queuing there, and I thought I would never work in anything. I never knew that when you do maths, you never work in anything either. But